I want to talk about CXN Advisory. Okay. You focus on guiding executives and leadership teams. How do you use this relationship building and as a foundation for strategic alignment? You talked about alignment earlier. Why is this approach so impactful in business?
Because ultimately, it's about teaching leadership teams to be relational and not transactional, right? And people think of business and they think of like, I've got to close the sale, I've got to, I've got to monetize this, I've got to whatever. And the reality is, and you can look at the Harvard, the long term Harvard study of lifetime happiness that was written up in a book called The Good Life. And if you read that book, they surveyed all these guys who were undergraduates at Harvard in the 1930s and 40s, tracked them through their whole lives and assessed their happiness at various junctures. And the one thing that came back, no matter how much or how little money they made in their lives, no matter, what went on, was strength and quality of their relationships was what was the single best indicator of a successful or happy life. And that, to me, and that holds true in the business world as well. Like, if you can teach leadership teams to relate to one another, to align on certain goals, to maybe compromise about some things that, if you had 100% of your way, you wouldn't necessarily do it that way. But, you gotta sacrifice for the greater good of the team. And that's where the CXN thing comes in, because there are no CXN stands for the Coxswain. And that's if you spell it out, the word is spelled Coxswain, and it's the little guy who sits in the front of the boat and coaches the rowers in the boat. And so after I had done this for a little while, I realized that I was serving as a coxswain for my leadership teams. I wasn't ever pulling on the oars, right? And the coxswain doesn't pull on the oars. The coxswain is dead weight in a crew boat. So the only way you can justify your existence in the crew boat, if you're the coxswain, is you get them in alignment and you coach them well enough that they can be in alignment and they can make the boat go and they can pull with dedication and alignment. So I view myself as a coxswain for leadership teams, and so my goal is to get them in a room, understand them, relate to them at a relational level, and then get them to relate to each other on that level, so that they don't have to love each other, right? But there is I'm sure you play sports growing up. I'm sure you've been in some locker rooms. You look fairly fit. There is a certain love that grows up in a locker room of guys who are pulling together for the same goal, right? And or girls for that matter. So and that exists in a crew boat, and that should exist in a leadership team if you're trying to achieve growth in any kind of setting.